Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about how to find a quality reference image for your drawing project. To remind you, your task for this project is to create a shaded graphite drawing using the grid and a reference photo. You will remember that you are in complete control over your content. You can draw anything that you want, but I do ask that whatever you choose, it is meaningful to you. I want you to have a personal connection to the work that you create. The first choice that you're going to have to make is if you are going to choose to use your own photos that you've taken, or you're going to go ahead and find an image from online. Either is fine with me as long as you have a personal connection to the subject matter and that it is meaningful. In this video, we're going to take some time to talk about what makes a reference image a quality reference image and the difference between good images and bad images. Overall, there are four main criteria that we're going to touch base on. And those are, first and foremost, that your reference image is actually a photograph, that it is clear and of high quality, that it has a focused focal point, and that it has a full range of value. We're going to go through each of these with examples of a good image and a bad image of every single one of these categories. The first criteria of a good reference image is that it is in fact a photograph and not someone else's artwork. If I were interested in drawing a lighthouse, for instance, this would be a perfect reference photo for me. I know this is in color and I'm going to be working in black and white, but I have a clear and focused focal point. I have a full range of tones here, from lights to darks. Everything is in focus and it really is a dynamic image. The composition is really nice. This would be a perfect reference photo for a lighthouse. In contrast, this image would not work for this project. Why is that? Well, this wouldn't work because it's someone else's artwork. It's actually a painting, right? Now, it is a very nice painting. It's got a lighthouse, the ocean, the sun, some birds. But if I were to choose this for my reference image, I would actually be plagiarizing their content, right? This is their painting, not my drawing. I could, in fact, be inspired by this image, which would then lead me to Google lighthouses, right? Or look through my camera roll if I took any pictures of lighthouses when I was at the beach this summer. But I wouldn't be able to draw this painting of a lighthouse. Now this extends to all of our cartoon characters as well. Anything that is drawn or painted isn't going to be able to be used because I want you to find a photo, and again, this is someone else's artwork. So what you're going to need to do is to either be inspired by these characters, or you can find these characters in real life somehow. Now this could be an actual photograph, right, which doesn't really translate all that well sometimes, or perhaps maybe you can find somebody cosplaying as that character and draw them instead, right? Now, again, this might not satisfy what you want to do, but it's really important that you understand the difference between a cartoon, a drawing, maybe a character, and a photograph. And I'm really looking for you to have a photograph. Now, I want to reiterate this has nothing to do with how I think about these characters and or character design. I very much value that. We'll talk about that later in the year. But for right now, I'm asking you to have a photo, to observe values in real life and recreate those values, which is something that you cannot do with your own drawing or someone else's drawing because all the work is there for you. The values have already been chosen. Now, there is one big exception to this, and that's going to be with CGI. Here you can see a photoshopped or CGI image of Iron Man, and then a drawing of Iron Man. The one on the left with Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man in one of the Marvel movies is perfect. You can see that this is what it would look like in real life if this really existed, right? So that's going to be just fine to draw. We have the light and shadow happening just the way it would happen in real life. In contrast, the drawing on the right-hand side, the cartoon image of Iron Man, is not something that is going to be acceptable for this project, again, because it's someone else's drawing and all of the content is there for you instead of you having to make that translation from photo to drawing itself. You can see that relationship here again with Thanos. Here we have that CGI, that digital rendering of the character on the left, and that would be perfect to use for this project. You can see all the highlights coming across his face and his armor, his shirt, as opposed to the one on the right, which is a cartoon drawing. Now, it's a really cool drawing. I love this style, but again, it's not going to be able to be used for this project because it doesn't meet our expectations for the project itself. Up next, your image must also be clear and of high quality instead of blurry or pixelated. On the left, we have a really high quality image. It's so clear and beautiful. I can see all the little details. Where on the right, it's the same image, but it's so much more blurry. You might be thinking, like, how? Why is this one so much more blurry? Well, look down at the bottom. Do you see those numbers there? Those numbers refer to the pixels. The image on the right is 360 pixels by 462, and that's really small. So when those pixels get stretched out, the image becomes blurrier for us. The one on the left, though, is 1080 pixels by 1350 pixels, and that's much, much bigger, and therefore when it gets stretched out to be the correct size, we don't see any damage because those pixels are so small. In our next video, I'm going to show you how to manipulate the settings in Google Images to help you find bigger pictures with more pixels right off the bat. Next up, your reference image should have a clear focal point, as opposed to no focal point or lots of confusing details or extra information. This image of a rabbit has a very clear focal point. The focal point is the rabbit, right? So all we can see in this image is that rabbit. This is in stark contrast to images like these. In these images of rabbits, you can see that the focal point really isn't well considered. A lot of these pictures are gray, which we'll talk more about in a minute, but especially this one with the rabbits at the yoga studio, there's a lot of extra information there. It's a really cute picture. I mean, all of these are really cute pictures, right? But it wouldn't necessarily be a good image to use for your reference for a drawing, right? We want to set ourselves up for success, so that image all the way on the left is really going to make a really good quality drawing, where the images on the right are going to be harder to draw and or less compelling to look at. Last but not least, a really good reference image is going to have a full range of value instead of a limited range. We want to see 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s in your image. In this image of Marilyn Monroe, you can see a full range of values. Do you see how there was a light source on the left-hand side, right? Which is casting the right side of her face from our direction in shadow, right? We have 1s in her hair and on her skin. We have 5s in some of the shadows in her shirt. This image is really well suited into a translation into just value drawing because it already makes a good value image. In contrast, this image here feels very washed out. It's interesting, it's very cute, she's taking a selfie in the car, and we do have those 1s and we do have those 5s, but if we look at our focal point, which would be her face, we really don't have a lot of value separating her facial features. Do you see how her nose is kind of like disappearing a little bit? So although you might be really excited about an image, you do need to make sure it has that full range. Let's look at a few other examples. Here's an example of a landscape. Again, a full range of value would be really beautiful to draw that gradient in the water. As opposed to this image, this looks like some kind of rock formation and a beautiful sky. It might be really beautiful in color. I can see the focal point. There's a little person in there. It's really cool, but all you really have in this image are 1s, 2s, and that 5, right? We don't have our 3s and 4s to really balance that out. Plus, we would use all of our 6B pencils to get all of that darkness in there. Here's another landscape. We have that beautiful sun streaking through, full range of value here in our mountain range, as opposed to this image here. Beautiful landscape, but just way too gray for a graphite drawing. Here's a beautiful image of some owl eyes. Again, a full range of value, nice texture, as opposed to this image of a bird. Really cute bird, but it's really just 2s, 3s, and 4s. If this picture were in color, maybe you found it in color, maybe it was a red bird on like a green background or something, that could be really interesting, but since we're working in black and white, you have to take that into account. Here's another portrait of Rihanna. You can see full range of values. Her face is nice and lit. Her hair is nice and dark. Look at that beautiful shine on her bracelets and on her shirt, maybe a little couple highlights on her lip. And compare that to this image here of a selfie she took in the car. I think she looks really cute, but again, it's so washed out, right? Only those 2s, 3s, maybe some 4s in there. So hopefully that helps frame your thinking around what options are available to you, what would make a really good reference photo. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you will draw. If you are having trouble figuring this out, you can always talk to me. I can help you brainstorm, but I also want to remind you that in your kit, I have actually provided you with some reference images, and they are included in your kit as well as on Schoology. I'm going to have a folder available to you. Take a look through them. I tried to find some images that would appeal to everybody, some things that were going on in the summer of 2020 that I thought would be interesting to draw. If you do not make a choice, I am going to ask you to choose one of these. That way you have a nice quality image to work with. If you like any of these images, you're more than welcome to do so. But again, if you're having trouble thinking, they are available to you. Either which way, I really am looking forward to seeing what you choose to draw and hearing the reasons behind it. And I really can't wait just to start drawing. See you soon.